you have to ensure that you consider the lawful basis. So consent, legitimate interest, vital interest, public tax, and things like that. But I will just concentrate on consent and legitimate interest. Reason being that because it's health data and financial data, so it's money and health we're talking about. So consent, for health data, we require explicit consent, so not just the basic consent, to ensure that it's been given on a fair term. And then we go to legitimate interest. For legitimate interest, there are some assessments that organizations need to carry. It's called LIA, so legitimate interest assessments, which I know because of the maturity level of data protection, most organizations do not carry out these assessments, but they're very important because it's called a balancing assessment. So you balance, you look at the necessity and the proportionality of the data you're processing because it's sensitive data. And for data protection, sensitive data is regarded as considered huge risk to the data subjects and individuals. So I think I will shed light on transparency. So transparency is one of the measures that should be considered as well. The right to be informed, the right to ensure that data subjects are informed of how their data are being processed, how it is used, and access, and people that have access to this data. And also, I think so transparency, lawfulness, and data minimization. So just to ensure that when organizations are processing data, they kind of collect only the data that is necessary for processing. So you don't collect data that is not relevant. So for example, I go to the bank and I want to apply for a loan, Well, you should know that if I'm coming for a loan, you have my first name, my second name, my date of birth, my home address. That should be enough to be able to apply for a loan. And then, because with that, we can do a check to see that, obviously, I meet the criteria for that loan. So, but most times, what organizations tend to do is to collect more data than what is required. So that's why data minimization is very important in the measures, when implementing the measures. And I think also I would shed light on incident response management and breach notification. I think most organizations, when we say breach, that's you breaching someone's data. So a lot of organizations have not grown enough to understand that we have to kind of, prepare plans, make plans for these incidents, and obviously how to also notify individuals or individuals of how their data has been breached. So in my organization where I work for a financial organization, and we have like a proper incident response management plan in place, which obviously that can be used to train the workers to understand that if there's a breach, this is what they need to do. So that gives them light and understanding of saying, okay, there's a breach, this is what I need to do, and things like that. So those are things that we need to kind of put in place to ensure that, the healthcare and the financial sector meets the criteria for compliance, because those two areas are very sensitive. And I think I would, so data subject rights as well. So I think individuals should be given an opportunity to have some sense of control of their data. I kind of was speaking to a friend, and she did mention that data subject rights are not being, respected in this regulation. So it's very important because as a human being, you have an organization is processing your data or health data, and you want to kind of, have some sense of control to be able to say, okay, fine, I can stop you from processing my data, I can ask you to delete my data, and I can actually ask you to be able to access my data to see what you have, what information you have, about me. Because sometimes we give loads of informations, and we don't even know what the organization or the health organization they have, what information they have or data they have of us as individuals. So I think data subject rights is also very important, just to ensure that there's that control. And then I'll just, the last one is DPIA's assessment. So we call them data privacy impact assessments. So they are kind of assessments that is supposed to be done to kind of identify the risks that are associated with processing, and also to be able to ensure that this can be mitigated. as quickly as possible. And for that assessment, it requires a lot of training. It requires a kind of huge maturity level for the organization itself. So the organization must actually understand data privacy for them to be able to, provide that training and awareness. And so, yeah, I think that covers healthcare, because it just covers the whole measures and everything, all the principles. Security measure, I forgot to mention that one. Security is very important. So according to the regulation, we have to kind of ensure that we have technical and organizational security measures in place to ensure that security is being protected, security of data is being protected. So how do we do that? Now, if you look at the technical side of things, we kind of encourage organizations to ensure that they have tight securities against unauthorized access. So access should be given on a role-based. So there's some people that do not need to kind of access data, but they are being given access to data. So data is made available. And so that's where you breach CIA. That's what we call confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. So if these things are not put in place in an organization, you tend to have, the data is very accessible, So also, there should be encryption of data. So because we have data moving around, so transfer data like from one place to the other. So in the process of moving data, all of these security measures should be
in place.
Adhered to, exactly.
Yeah.
Just to ensure compliance with the,
Great. What you said about data, I find very apt, especially about data and privacy rights. And I would like to ask Nelson to weigh in on this conversation. So we have our private data, we have our privacy rights, and there should be a controlled way of access to that data, right? By either government or security agencies or even third-party agents. I want you to speak particularly to the issue of security agencies accessing data. What do you think particularly, how do we strike a balance between effective crime prevention and access to people's data, especially in this evolving digital landscape?